Bonjour tout le monde, merci d'être venus aussi nombreux. Donc là, on va avoir une masterclass sur Kilchoman avec le fondateur, Anthony Wells, qui va nous parler de la distillerie avec une petite verticale. Merci. Anthony.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My French is appalling, so I'm going to speak to you in English, and hopefully you've either got your sets on or you can understand me perfectly well. It's a great pleasure to be here today and to present Kilchoman. It's a little bit of an educational masterclass in terms of what we're going to show here. We're going to be showing our new make spirit, 1-year-old, matured in first fill, all matured in first fill bourbon barrels. So 1-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, up to a 10-year-old single cask that's been bottled exclusively for La Maison de Whisky. So just a bit of background to the distillery. I founded the distillery back in 2005. We're not showing anything here at the moment. I'm not sure why. Oh, here we go. So here we are, Kilchoman. Those who visited, I'm sure a few of you visited the distillery. We're out on the west coast. We chose Islay because of Islay's iconic status as a single malt region of Scotland. Particular style of whiskies, which I know you all enjoy hugely. France is a very important market for us. And here I am with my 3 sons and my wife. So it's a family-run business with a few private investors. Back in 2005, not many people were thinking of building new distilleries in Scotland. We were the first one on Islay for 124 years, which goes to show you, and things have changed hugely since those days. But I think back in 2005, I saw that the increase in popularity for premium single malt, and I've been in the industry a number of years as an independent bottler. And so I was the one who was brave enough, stupid enough, whatever you like to say, to build a new distillery because clearly it's hugely expensive. There's a lot of upfront money required, and then you have to wait until you release your single malt and hopefully people enjoy what you produce. So big risks attached, but now as you've been walking around the show today, there's a huge number of new distilleries from all around the world, and it's a very exciting time to be involved in the spirits industry and especially single malt Scotch whisky. So my family are fully involved in the business. My 3 sons run the sales and marketing side of the operation. We export to about 45, 50 markets around the world. But France is one of our key markets, and it's been great being on the stand in the last 2 days and talking to people because you are very well educated in single malt. You ask all the right questions, and it's a delight to come to a country where people are hugely passionate about single malt Scotch whisky, and especially Islay single malts, which have a distinctive characteristic. So we started off, Kilchoman, producing very small quantities of single malt, and now we're producing about 600,000 litres, which is for us is quite a high number. We mature in first fill, mainly first fill casks, and today is all about demonstrating how whiskey develops and evolves from new make right the way through till it's 10 years of age. When I built the distillery, it was about trying to design stills that we could produce a lighter, fruitier alcohol that could be matured relatively quickly so we could release it onto the market at a relatively young age. And hopefully when you go through these, you'll understand what I'm talking about in terms of younger single malts, and especially Islay single malts are very appealing, and they have a huge amount about them that attracts them at a younger age simply because the peat and smoke comes through a lot more on the palate at a younger age. And as they mature for 15 or 20 years, they lose that sort of edge of salty, briny, peaty characteristics, and you get more influence from the cask it's being matured in. So I would say as a new distillery that being able to release them at a young age is great for the finances, but also it's also been it was hugely important that people were willing to accept younger age single malts, and clearly at the time we started Kilchoman, that was the case. So what we're going to do is taste the new make spirit, which is clear as we call it, new make. And this is how all distilleries start their journey, all single distilleries start. And the character and style of the new make will determine, how you're going to progress and how things are going to work out for you in terms of maturation. But clearly, maturing in new wood and in fresh bourbon, in other words, ex-bourbon barrels or ex-sherry casks, is hugely important because it gives a huge amount of character to the whiskey that you're going to be maturing in it. So we've been buying all our ex-bourbon barrels from Buffalo Trace Distillery for a number of years. You get the consistency of character coming through all the way, and the same with our sherry casks. So the new make, to me, has a very sort of sweet, floral, clean character. It has no sort of off notes or fainty character. There's nothing wrong with that. It just means that you need to mature it for a little bit longer to mature those characteristics out. So when you nose this, it's 63.5% alcohol strength. It's very creamy. It's very clean. And to me, it's very strong, but it's very clean, and it has this wonderful texture to it. And that was key for us in terms of, how it was going to mature and when we could release our first single malt. And due to the maturation policy, we were able to release our first single malt when it was actually 3 years of age, bang on 3 years of age. And the reaction was relatively positive in terms of the maturation and how it had matured in those relatively short space of time in 3 years. So I think every single distillery produces a different style of new make, and it all is all down to either design and shape of stills or the production processes that you use in your individual distillery. What was key for us was long fermentation was key. So we're 80 to 90 hours of fermentation. Some distilleries a bit shorter, maybe some a bit longer, but 80, 90 hours suits us and the style of spirit that we're looking to produce. And then the other key ingredient is yeast. Yeast plays a massive part in terms of the character of your spirit. And we go for one distiller's yeast, which is a pressed yeast, and it gives us a character we're looking for. We experiment with yeast varieties on occasions, and it's amazing how different the spirit will come off the still if you use different yeast varieties. The thing is that everyone needs to recognize is that once you put it into cask, the cask will have the biggest influence on the maturing whiskey. But through all those processes, most people, big distillers, are looking for yield and cost. The cost of production is key to all distilleries, especially right now with all the energy prices going through the roof. But what was key for us was the actual style and character of the spirit that we produce. So we're keen to produce it on a daily, weekly basis. The same procedures are done throughout the distillery every day. But then we'll tweak it slightly with different yeast varieties to run a batch with a different yeast variety. And then we'll have different cut points occasionally to showcase what you can do with little tweaks within the production process. But on the whole, our production is the same every week, every month, to get that consistent character of spirit, because we know that once it goes into wood, it's the wood that's really going to play the major part in the character of the spirit you're going to produce. We fill mainly bourbon barrels, and our spirit tends to work very well in bourbon barrels. So when you taste the number 2, so this is 1 year old, okay? So this is 1 year old, matured in a first fill bourbon barrel. It's already starting to pick up quite a lot of character from the cask, even after 1 year. If you compare it with the new make, it's sort of becoming a little bit more austere. It's drawing back. It's not so creamy. And it's picking up those notes of lemon and citrus that we know are coming through on all bourbon cask matured whiskies from Kilchoman. You always have a distillery character that shines through, and certainly I always pick up lemon and citrus is something that we pick up on all our maturing whiskies, even if they're in sherry or cognac or rum, that it's there. And the color, you'll see from the color, you know, that they're starting to pick up a little bit of color after 1 year, and then more after 3, and then, you know, it's really a lovely rich color after even 5 years. And then it doesn't really start to develop a lot more, and there's still a lot more color in the 10-year-old. If anybody's got any questions as we're going through, do feel free to put your hand up and ask. But what I like about our spirit is that even after 1 year, there's no real alcohol burn. There's no real spirit character. It's really starting to develop very nicely, even after 1 year. And I think that's testament to the production methods we have, but also the quality of the casks that we fill into, which make a massive, massive difference to what is developing in the barrel. And so this isn't about showcasing our 10 and our 15-year-old single malt whiskies. This is about showcasing the journey our new make spirit takes until it gets to 10 years of age. And I think it's really, you know, you call it educational, it's an evolution of what we do on a daily basis, picking casks out at various ages to vat together, until we get to what I believe is, you know, how you should drink your whiskey really is a 10-year-old single cask at cask strength, because there's nothing diluted, there's nothing taken away, and there's nothing added, it's all there. But, you know, at 1 year of age, that is pretty consistent. It's not fiery at all, and so you could quite happily drink our 1-year-old, I believe, and feel, and it's getting more peat and smoke coming through. That's that briny, salty character is there in abundance. So 1 year old, and then I think it showcases exactly the direction we're going in terms of maturation. And the 3-year-old is starting to pick up more of that sort of lemon citrus note now, I believe. It's softening out a little bit more. It's still, you've got that sort of alcohol prickly burn, but it's not extenuated. It's starting to develop very nicely in the glass. And we're talking about something that's still 62% alcohol strength, 63%. Won't have lost a lot of alcohol in that time. And to me, that's just developed a little bit more. It's got a little bit more about it. The cask influence is coming through. And I think due to the sweetness of our new make spirit, that translates into these casks very nicely and starts to knit together in a way that showcases our whiskies at a relatively young age, and with a lot of maturity beyond that in many respects. Now, you'll all know our Mackie Bay and our Sanig. Mackie Bay is mainly matured in bourbon barrels, and 10% in Oloroso sherry. But that's all about 4, 5, and 6 years of age whiskies. But when you marry those whiskies together, you come up with something that really sort of showcases Kilchoman in a true light of what our expressions are like. I think that you can argue that a bit more maturation would be good, but actually, funnily enough, a lot of people tell me that they prefer Mackie Bay to something that's 8 or 10 years of age, because they prefer that sort of freshness and that sort of youthful character that comes through on our younger releases. But sure, we're maturing some of our whiskies for longer age. What that means, you're getting more influence from the cask it's matured in. So with bourbon, you're just getting a lot more sort of vanilla and caramel and butterscotch notes starting to develop as it gets a bit older. But for me, as they get a bit older, they lose that punch of smoke and peat and briny character that everybody here in the room, I'm sure, enjoys that style. So because of the style of our spirit, which tends to be sweet and floral, then you would say drink Kilchoman at a relatively young age. So what's the sweet spot for Kilchoman? I don't know. You know better than I do in terms of what you enjoy. But I think it's between 7 and 8 and 12, 14 years of age. And maybe beyond that, people will go, wow, isn't that fantastic? But actually, if you're looking for an Islay peaty whiskey, you want something that showcases Islay in its all its glory. And that's about peat and smoke and salt and briny characteristics that are coming through. And I think I have to admit that when we designed and built the distillery, it was trying to design and bring a spirit onto the market that could be well received at a relatively young age. And we've been overwhelmed by people's opinions and their views on what we put out on the market. It's great for us in terms of young age profile, working for people in a way that we weren't sure was going to happen when we started the distillery. And that's the big risk of starting a distillery, is you don't know what the reaction is going to be until you've actually made it, spent a huge sum of money, and then hope that people enjoy what you're producing. So that was that the 3-year-old we tried? We've tried the 3. So the 5-year-old, again, has got a little bit richer in colour. So it's developing more colour from the cask it's being matured in. They're all first fill bourbon barrels, okay? So all from Buffalo Trace, so very consistent in character, these casks. If you buy from a cooperage, they can be a little bit less continuity. So buying directly from one distillery gives you that continuity and consistency in character that goes all the way through our maturation. So when we're looking at sampling and tasting casks out of our warehouse, if you go to 1-year-old, they're all very, very similar in character. So this is now developing a sort of creamy characteristic. It's got a lot more sort of lemon and citrus notes. And it's very soft on the nose. And this we're talking something at 5 years of age. And again, this will be up at a strength of around 59, 60% alcohol strength. And I don't think you'd think it was at that strength, because it's quite sort of soft and sweet and fruity. It doesn't really give you that alcohol burn. It's now developing really nicely as a 5-year-old. And I always say age shouldn't matter. Of course it matters. Everybody likes to know what they're drinking. And people ask me all the time whether we're going to put an age statement on our whiskies. Not at the moment. We don't think that's necessary. We're very pleased with the development of sales. And so it's all about buying Kilchoman for what it's about and what's in the bottle, rather than the age statement. And getting away from age statement whiskies. We know how important they are. They're a very controversial subject, and everyone likes to have as much information as possible. We give that through QR codes as well on our labels. But to me, that's now developing just a little bit more depth, even at 5 years of age. And we're talking about very young whiskies in the single malt world. But hopefully this is sort of demonstrated in a way the evolution of Kilchoman single malt, just at a relatively young age, up to something which, at 10 years of age, has that much more going on about it, and a lot more depth of character from the individual cask it's matured in. Okay? So, I've got it, yeah. So to me, we do a lot of individual casks for our distributors around the world. For me, I was an independent bottler before I built Kilchoman Distillery, and this is the ultimate way to drink whiskey. Anybody in this room tells me, well, it's too strong, well, just add a bit more water. You're in total control of how you drink these cask strength whiskies. When they're reduced to 46%, you can argue with Kilchoman that it's been overdone and it's reduced too much. So full strength is all about showcasing an individual cask in all its beauty, in all its natural state, no chill filtration, straight from the cask, and nothing added. And we do a lot of single casks because we believe this is the ultimate way of drinking whiskey. We reduce them to 46% because we need to share more of them around, to put it bluntly. If I could bottle everything at cask strength, I would. But as a commercial proposition, it's not really feasible to do that. So we're doing more and more single casks, and we're doing more small batch at higher strength because we believe, Kilchoman can take that additional alcohol strength. And I think that's been proved, hopefully, through these samples you've tried today. But, for this one, I know this one well. I've been pouring it on the stand for the last 2 days. Was chosen by La Maison de Whisky, and I think it's available here today. but to me, this has everything about it. It's a bottle at 55.8%. It's one of 237 bottles. In a bourbon barrel, we're talking something up to 10 years of age, anything from 235 to 245 bottles normally. I think what this really shows you the development and evolution of a distillery, new make, right the way through till it's 10 years of age. And this now has a lot of the depth of character that you're expecting in terms of those caramel and butterscotch notes that I always pick up when bourbon barrels, you've matured for over 10 or 12 years. Lovely, soft richness. Yeah. That's the ultimate Kilchoman. I think this one's worked particularly well. I'm not saying that just because it's a bottle for France, but I think it really demonstrates to me Kilchoman matured in bourbon barrels. There's no hiding place in bourbon barrel maturation, because they're lighter and fruitier. If you choose sherry casks or richer, you're talking about sherry maybe masking some of the characteristics that you're looking to showcase. So that's why we fill mainly bourbon barrels, because I think it works so beautifully well and really showcases our spirit character right the way through the ages. And although we do fill all sorts of other casks, majority of what we fill are bourbon barrels, because with the Islay characteristics, the Islay style, those strong, sort of smoky, salty, briny characteristics, and that lighter, fruity cast from bourbon, that's a magical combination. But everyone wants bourbon barrels at the moment, so it's becoming a bit of an issue. So we hope that there's not quite so many distilleries going to be built in the next sort of 10 or 15 years as there have been. It's an extraordinary evolution of spirits and whiskey around the world in the last sort of 5 or 10 years. It's extraordinary how the industry is built in that time. I came to Whisky Live in 2008 in the centre of Paris, and I had a little booth, and hardly anybody came to see me. And now I come back to Paris to this show, and it's just phenomenal how many people now know about Kilchoman. And really that's a testament to the Maison de Whisky team, who've done a fantastic job in promoting and selling Kilchoman. It does help, though, that Thierry Benatar loves Islay whiskies, and so he took me under his wing when we first got underway, and has helped us develop Kilchoman in the marketplace. I hope behind you've been able to see a bit of the video that's been showing. How many of you been to Kilchoman? Have some of you? Yeah, there's a few of you here, so yeah, not many. So you clearly need to get to Islay and come and see. There's plenty to see. Well, there's 9 distilleries now. There's soon to be another 2 or 3. So there's a lot to see and a lot to look at when you're there. Yes.
Can we expect an older Kilchoman in the future, or because I think the oldest I tasted was 14, probably?
Well, if you'd come to the festival in 2022 in May this year, we did a vatting and did a 16-year-old, but a very small 5 casks, so it was about 800 and 900 bottles. There will be, but in small quantities. There will be older releases, single casks or small batch vatting, but we won't have a regular release of anything over 10 years of age for a bit. I think when you try and forecast sales and forecast where you're going, we would have never expected to be where we are now in terms of sales. So we got a bit of catching up to do with production. So we're producing a bit more. And this is why the industry is never very good at forecasting what it needs in production, because it's either producing too much or too little, never the right amount. So it's something that every distillery has that issue with, and we've invested quite heavily recently in producing more spirit so that we can share our whiskies with everyone. What we don't want to be in a position to is allocate them around the world, because that means, you're going backwards that way. So it's we've enjoyed this journey. It's been a fantastic journey. I don't think in 2005 we would ever expect to be in the position we are, but that's due to the enthusiasm for whiskey in general and single malt whiskey from Scotland, and consumers embracing non-aged and new distilleries products coming on the market, and that's made a massive difference to the industry as a whole. Are you wanting to stop me now? Oh, you are, aren't you?
Well, it's time, but...
Oh, it's time now.
Thank you very much. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone, round of applause. If you have any questions, of course, you can go to the stand. Vous pouvez lui poser des questions sur le stand, Kilchoman. Et bon salon, continuation, and thanks again. Cheers.
Okay. Any question, you can come and ask me.